57 kilometers from the border between northern Ethiopia and Eritrea, hundreds of tents and huts dot the sparse vegetation. Shimelba camp has become home to 8,500 asylum seekers who've crossed the border in search of safety. Around 250 Eritreans arrive in the camp each month, following the border war that broke out between Eritrea and Ethiopia in May 2000. Tesfa Ledit and his young family arrived in the camp a few months ago. His story is typical. He was arrested, accused of collaborating with anti-government forces. He escaped from captivity while doing forced labor road building and fled for his life.
I walked for 4 days. I went back to Senefe, where I used to live, but it wasn't safe to go to my house. I called my wife and told her to bring the children and whatever money she could get hold of. We met up, and together we set off to come here, traveling by night.
Like Tesfa's family, most of the people here have been moved from a makeshift site much closer to the border with Eritrea. They're transferred by bus to the new camp that's being established by UNHCR at Shimelba. Blankets and kitchen materials are distributed before the refugees are allocated to where they'll have to make their homes. Conditions are tough in Shimelba, but it's an improvement on the old camp. Further from the border, there's greater security and more space to provide facilities like a health clinic and school. But on the downside, the camp is isolated and prone to extremes of heat. The first water borehole failed and a new water supply has to be dug. In the meantime, the women queue for hours, waiting to collect the water they need. Tesfa's wife Enadet has just had a new baby. Kisanat is just 4 weeks old. She was born in the camp, and the family are having to get used to managing without the help from parents they'd have had back home in Eritrea. For Enadet, it's exhausting looking after 2 young children as well as her new baby. Today they're on the way to the camp's health clinic, where Kisanat will receive her first vaccinations. The extremes of climate in Shimelba are hard to bear for the highland Eritreans. As always, children are particularly vulnerable. Malaria is common, but as well as physical illness, the frustrations of camp life can lead to stress and depression. Despite the day-to-day difficulties, Enadet is optimistic for the future. She's lived in camps for over a year now, and is looking forward to the day when she'll be able to return to the comforts of home in Eritrea.
I see a bright future ahead. We've survived this far, at least we're alive. And if we can overcome these troubles, I believe there's a bright future ahead of us.
But for this young family, the days pass slowly. And until a long-term solution is found to the border conflict, they must put their plans for the future on hold.